Pandora's Actor. Pandora's Actor is the area guardian of the treasury and financial manager of Nazarick, basically the guy who keeps track of all the amassed fortune of gold and treasure and makes sure everything runs smoothly for Ainz Ongon. Now here's where it gets interesting. He was created by Momonga himself during what can only be described as his embarrassing teenage phase, complete with dramatic flair and over-the-top personality quirks. The whole point wasn't to create some battle monster or business genius, but rather to preserve the identity of Ainz Ongon and keep alive the memories of his guild members. His backstory reveals this weird obsession with managing magic items that go way beyond normal hobby levels. We're talking full-blown fetish territory here. Momonga designed him specifically to love being alone in the treasury, thinking he'd be perfectly content cataloging items all day, but somehow that obsession spiraled into something much more intense. In the web novel, he doesn't just organize stuff. He conducts full experiments with magic items and tests various spells to figure out how magic power scales differently in the new world compared to Yggdrasil. His abilities are where things get really wild. Even though his base stats are lower than other level 100 NPCs, he's still incredibly capable thanks to his main power, transformation. As a high-tier doppelganger, he can shift into any Yggdrasil character or New World resident, and when he does, his stats completely change to match theirs, except for HP and MP and special abilities. This transformation isn't just cosmetic either. He gains access to all their skills and abilities, making him incredibly adaptable for any situation. His creator often uses this for random tasks, like having him transform into Nearata to appraise items with merchant abilities. The disguise aspect is pretty solid too. He can fool NPCs when impersonating their creators, though it doesn't always work perfectly. When he tried to trick Albedo by looking like her creator, Tabula Smaragdina, she saw right through it after a few moments because she claimed she always recognized her own creator. However, his limitations are pretty significant. He can only maintain 45 different saved forms, specifically the 41 guild members of Ainz Ongon plus 4 unknown forms, and when mimicking someone, he takes penalties to all attributes and can only use their abilities at 80% strength. His magic completely changes depending on who he's transformed into. If he shifts from one spellcaster to another, his entire spell repertoire switches around. He can access their full set of 300 tier spells, but he can't use super tier magic at all, unless he has some sort of special item that allows it. As Treasury Guardian, he manages Nazarick's countless magic items and data crystals while preparing currency for the tomb's defense network. He controls 16 defensive barriers and can activate magical traps against enemies who breach the first barrier with 8th tier magic or higher. These traps cause Yggdrasil gold coins to activate, with stronger traps requiring more money. Despite his theatrical personality, he's incredibly intelligent. Albedo considers him equal to herself and Demiurge in brains, and rumors suggest his combat strength matches other floor guardians like Sebas and Shoutir. His racial abilities as a doppelganger are enhanced in the new world, making his transformations even more effective than they were in the game. He first appears when Ainz enters the treasury with Albedo and some Pleiades, finding him disguised as Tabula Smaragdina before ordering him to reveal his true form. After introductions, Ainz commands him to retrieve world items, but he senses something wrong outside and requests additional duties beyond just sitting in the treasury all day. Understanding that he's meant to be a trump card containing his comrades' forms, he still argues it's wasteful to remain idle. Ainz reluctantly agrees and gives him the Ring of Ainz Ongon, making him the third NPC to receive this honor. During a private conversation, he confirms he'd fight any supreme being if Ainz commanded it, and Ainz asks him to stop his dramatic saluting and speak German, which clearly embarrasses his creator. When Albedo refuses to hand over her ring to him, he gets annoyed and explains Ainz's reasoning about the Avatara attacking her. His duties expand as Ainz orders him to transform and observe various experiments, including appraising Clementine's stiletto using Nearata's merchant abilities. When Sebas' loyalty comes into question, he disguises himself as Ainz to test the butler's allegiance, successfully confirming Sebas remains loyal, though he nearly blows his cover with his typical cape-fluttering dramatics. During Nazarick's invasion of Riastais, he handles transportation logistics, securing wealth from warehouse districts. Ainz then orders him to pose as Momon with Nabe to observe Nazarick's defense test without abandoning his position at the workers' camp. He reports that adventurers are waiting outside Nazarick after workers fail to return, causing panic among the adventurers. Following the Katzplain massacre, he takes over Momon's role permanently in E. Rantel, stopping Albedo from killing a boy who disrespected Ainz, and becoming the city's enforcer to maintain the illusion that Momon and Ainz are different people. Albedo entrusts him with controlling both Nazarick and Irantel while she visits Riastai's capital. He gathers intelligence by writing coaches with Irantel citizens who speak more honestly to Momon than they would to the Sorcerer King, reporting their concerns to Ainz. When Ainz approaches him about problems with his Momon role, he desperately begs for more time with magic items since he can't possibly maintain the guild members' equipment while playing Adventurer. Ainz grants him permission to return to the treasury daily and work on the guild's weaponry, finally acknowledging him as his son and expressing hope that he'll grow to surpass him. Moved by this recognition, he vows to live up to the expectations and agrees to keep their conversation secret. He reports that Irantel citizens worry about the kingdom's direction and fear of being dragged into wars if Ainz adopts expansionist policies. During the war with the Riastai's kingdom, he serves as bait in the capital, acting as Ainz without world item protection to lure out strong enemies. When Azuf attacks with divine fire storm spells, he orders Albedo to pursue him while preparing for another enemy approaching via teleportation. His battle against the mysterious warrior, Riku, becomes an extended intelligence gathering operation, where he intentionally prolongs the fight, provoking conversation, and analyzing his opponent's abilities, including the strange world-separating wall spell. He switches between direct combat and uses summoned monsters like Doomlord and Elemental Skull to test which spells work against Riku. When Albedo arrives and forces Riku to retreat, they return to Nazarick for a debriefing. He reports that Riku is approximately level 90 based on magic resistance, though other floor guardians disagree with this assessment. Albedo criticizes him for kneeling and begging while impersonating Ainz, making their master appear weak, but Ainz praises the performance for successfully deceiving Riku. He admits confusion about the barrier that trapped him while allowing Albedo to enter easily, learning it required world items to perceive and penetrate. The discussion reveals Riku's powers might be unique to the new world rather than Yggdrasil-based abilities. Before Ain's vacation to Elf Country, he trains with his creator and later gets assigned to appraise treasures stolen from the Elven Royal Castle treasury, with all loot stored in a log cabin until he can properly evaluate it. When Ainz captured Antolin and wants to retrieve Desamhogan's corpse while interrogating the prisoner, he decides to summon him for the retrieval task so he can handle the interrogation personally, showcasing how integral he's become to Nazarick's operations beyond just treasury management.
Gamersups is an energy and nootropic formula designed to be a healthier, cheaper, and more effective beverage over energy drinks for gamers or the modern anime weeb on the go. Its blend of essential vitamins, caffeine, and nootropics provide a consistent boost with no jitters and no crash. It has 0 sugar, less than 1 carb, and less than 1 calorie per serving, so it's keto and diabetic safe. Plus, there's sugar-free options. I personally drink it all the time to be able to grind out these straight-to-the-point and informative videos for you guys, and they'll likely be the only sponsor you'll ever see on this channel. So help the channel stay mostly sponsor-free by clicking the link in our description, picking from the many tasty and uniquely named flavors on the website, and use our code ANIMEX at checkout to save 10% on your order. It would be a huge help for us. Also, pick yourself up a aesthetically interesting waifu cup while you're at it too. They're collectible. But anyway.
Kyouhukou. Kyouhukou is an area guardian of the black capsule on the 2nd floor of the Great Tomb of Nazarick. He's basically a 30cm tall cockroach that stands upright like it owns the place, head pointing straight forward like he's daring you to look away. Maruyama noted that his room is rigged with a trap specifically for anyone with a female exterior. Once triggered, it drags the unlucky target straight into the roach pit. One of his standout talents is summoning swarms of cockroaches in all sizes, a creepy tide that overwhelms his targets with non-stop waves of scuttling horror. This swarm tactic isn't about brute force, but pure psychological punishment, so effective that Xiao Tier herself admits he's a master at calling forth his crawling kin. He can unleash anywhere from 10,000 to 100,000 roaches at once, which makes him a nightmare in tight spaces, even if he's not exactly built for open battlefields. In the web novel, it's said that he could keep pumping out giant roaches endlessly, each around 150 centimeters tall and only about as sturdy as thin iron plating, but tough enough that normal villagers would stand 0 chance. Unless you're burning the place down with fire, you're basically stuck in a roach nest forever. His arsenal is simple but nasty, an unnamed specter for calling in more reinforcements and a cape to shrug off attacks. He's got such a reputation that players who blunder into his den usually freak out and log off in panic. He first shows up when he runs into Hamsuke on the 2nd floor after she accidentally stumbles into the black capsule, basically running away because the undead spooked her. When he realizes she's completely lost, the cockroach decides to be helpful and give her one of his little minions to show her the way to the 6th floor. During the 2 leaders arc, Shihoutu suggested Albedo get his help to handle her stubborn bicorn mount, since he knows a thing or two about summoning and controlling creatures. But Albedo flat out refused because she can't stand him. Probably because he's the kind of roommate who might crawl up your clothes for fun. Shihoutu even shudders at the memory of his lair and wants nothing to do with it, even though it technically falls under her domain. And Toma though has no problem dropping by and has turned part of his creepy lair into her snack room, which says plenty about her taste. When Nazarick needed Hilma to spill 8 Fingers' secrets, Kyouhukou was the one who made sure she cracked, leaving her so terrified that she'd do anything to never see him again. Mare and Or later marched the rest of the 8 Fingers executives straight to him for more interrogations. Demiurge confirmed that with help from Kyouhukou, Mare, and Neuronist Painkill, Nazarick managed to gut 8 Fingers' authority from the inside out, paving the way for the Reasticed Kingdom to fall completely under Nazarick's thumb. Kyouhukou personally greeted Gringam and his comrades when they got teleported into the Black Capsule, treating them with unexpected politeness while calmly letting them know where they were before they tried, and failed, to talk their way out. Shihoutu even planned to drag Kokoda to the Black Capsule later on to break him and teach him to stay loyal to Ain's own Gon, because nothing says loyalty training quite like quality time in a roach pit. Gurin. Gurin serves as the area guardian of the river of lava on the 7th floor of the Great Tomb of Nazarick, and this massively abyssal hell slime is something you don't want to mess with. Nobody in Nazarick actually knows what gender it is, with Pulcinella straight up thinking it doesn't have one at all. When it comes to defending Nazarick, Gurin has this sneaky habit of staying hidden and dragging unlucky enemies into a terrain that gives it every advantage possible. Back when Ain's own Gon established Nazarick as their guild base, they stuck Gurin right there in the molten river on the 7th floor to do what it does best. Most of the time, it just chills in those lava pools, waiting for some poor soul to wander close enough so it can launch surprise attacks, using the terrain as perfect cover. This thing is a level 90 hell slime that was built specifically for combat, which puts its fighting skills right up there with the floor guardians themselves. As the area guardian of the 7th floor river of flame, it has this nasty trick where it uses its tentacles to drag targets down into the quicksand-like lava, basically turning them into sitting ducks while they get pummeled by an enemy they can barely see. What makes Gurin particularly terrifying is that it's actually considered way more dangerous than Demiurge, who also runs things on the 7th floor. Since it doesn't need to breathe, the creature can completely hide its body in the magma, making it nearly impossible to defeat using conventional methods. Ainz has mentioned there's a solid reason why area guardians like Gurin aren't allowed to just roam around wherever they want. The passive aura it gives off would cause massive collateral damage everywhere it goes. Just moving it to the 9th floor would set wool carpets on fire and seriously hurt the regular maids working there. According to Slimeco, depending on what type of enemy it's dealing with, Gurin can actually spit out and create inferno slimes, which is apparently the kind of move that every other slime dreams of pulling off. Ura had pointed out to both Albedo and Shihoutu that even if intruders somehow make it past the 6th floor, they still have to deal with Gurin on the 7th floor and then survive the entire 8th floor before they could even think about reaching Ainz. When Pulcinella was delivering a message from Demiurge to Mare, Mare mentioned that if he wanted to send a reply back, he might need to use Gurin as a relay, so he asked Pulcinella where the slime was hanging out. Pulcinella told him the last time he saw Gurin was when Demiurge wasn't around, and it was lurking in ambush near the gate to the 6th floor. The first time we actually see Gurin in action, it spots a lone Death Knight making its way along the River of Flame. It stalked the undead creature for a bit and eventually lost interest when it figured out the Death Knight wasn't actually an enemy. Later, after the Reasticed Kingdom fell and the royal palace was conquered, the Sorcerer King gave Albedo orders to summon Gurin and have it burn the entire place to the ground, except for the palace itself. Grant. Grant holds the area guardian position in the Great Tomb of Nazarick, but what makes her really stand out is that she doesn't stick to just one floor like most other guardians. Instead, she protects scattered areas across multiple floors, specifically the 3rd and 6th floor, which gives her a much broader territory to watch over than your typical area guardian. This multi-floor responsibility suggests that she's got some serious capabilities and trustworthiness that caught the attention of whoever designed Nazarick's defense system. She ranks among the very few NPCs in Nazarick who pack serious power levels outside of the floor guardians themselves, with her level likely sitting at 90 or higher, putting her in the same league as some of the most dangerous beings in the tomb. What's really intriguing about Grant is how little anyone actually knows about her capabilities or appearance, since she's only been mentioned in passing throughout the series and hasn't made any direct appearances yet. This mysterious nature adds to her mystique and makes you wonder just what kind of abilities she might possess that warrant such a high level and such an important position. When Ain's own Gon was dealing with critical situations that required all the major defenders to be informed, Grant was specifically mentioned as one of the area guardians who needs to know what was going on, showing that her role is considered essential enough to keep in the loop during major events. The fact that she gets included in these high-level briefings alongside other major figures really emphasizes her importance in Nazarik's hierarchy. Cocytus, who's pretty selective about his relationships, openly admits that he maintains good terms with several key figures, including Demiurge, Kyouhukou, Grant, and Gashokukochuuou, which tells us that despite her mysterious nature, she's well regarded and respected by at least one of the floor guardians. This relationship with Cocytus also hints that she probably's got a personality that meshes well with serious duty-focused individuals. When Intoma Vasilisa Zeta was thinking about creating her own web, she made it clear that she didn't want to step on Grant's territory, which gives us a pretty big clue about what Grant's abilities might involve. The fact that Intoma, who's got her own spider-based powers, specifically mentions not wanting to intrude on Grant's domain strongly suggests that Grant has some kind of web-weaving or spider-related capabilities that overlap with what Intoma does. This respect for Grant's territorial boundaries also shows that even other NPCs in Nazarik take her seriously enough to avoid potential conflicts with her areas of expertise. Gashokukochuuou. Gashokukochuuou serves as the area guardian of the large hole in Nazarik, and he's got the dubious honor of being part of the 5 worst, which is basically the 5 most revolting NPCs in the entire tomb. His particular claim to fame within this group is holding the title Worst Appearance, which really says something considering the competition he's up against in a place like Nazarik, that's packed with all kinds of horrifying creatures. He appears to be some kind of parasitic creature with insectoid characteristics, and that Worst Appearance title tells you everything you need to know about how absolutely hideous he looks, even when compared to some of Nazarik's other genuinely disturbing residents. What we know about his personality is pretty limited, but what little we do know paints a picture of someone who has zero sympathy for humans and treats them more like living real estate than actual beings. He's completely fine with using humans as his house, which gives you a pretty clear idea of how he views the human race in general. When he managed to get himself a new home setup, he was so pleased with the acquisition that he threw a housewarming party and invited the rest of the 5 worst to come check out his place on the 6th floor, showing that he's got enough of a social side to want to celebrate his achievements with others who share his particular brand of awfulness. At one point, Ainz decided that Hecaron and Amina need to be brought to the large hole because he was running out of nests to use, and he initially planned to have Aura handle the delivery. However, Aura managed to talk her master into letting her brother Mare take care of the task instead, which tells us a lot about how much even the floor guardians want to avoid dealing with this guy directly. The fact that he needs humans as nest pretty much confirmed that he's definitely a parasite type NPC, using human hosts for whatever twisted purpose his biology requires. The author has mentioned that Hecaron and Amina actually gained weight after Volume 7, which strongly suggests that he or members of his family have taken up residence inside them, turning these former adventurers into unwilling hosts for his offspring or extensions of himself. Aura's reaction to visiting the large hole is particularly telling because she absolutely hates going there and will send Mare in her place whenever possible, which is remarkably similar to how she reacts when dealing with Kyouhukou, another member of Nazarik's more disturbing residents. This parallel reaction from Aura, who's normally pretty tough and capable of handling most situations, really drives home just how genuinely unpleasant and disturbing he must be to deal with in person. Oreo Omega. Oreo Omega serves as the area guardian of the Cherry Blossom Sanctuary and leads the Pleiades 7 Sisters, which is basically the elite battle-made squad of the Great Tomb of Nazarik. She's got a pretty massive responsibility on her shoulders since she's in charge of all the teleportation gates throughout Nazarik, which means she controls one of the most crucial aspects of the tomb's infrastructure. On top of that gate management duty, she's also been tasked with protecting the staff of Ain's own Gon in the Cherry Blossom Sanctuary, making her a guardian of one of Nazarik's most important artifacts. What makes her really unique among all the NPCs in Nazarik is that she's the only human NPC who possesses eternal life, which sets her apart from every other human character in the series. According to her older sister, Yuri Alpha, She's typically the go-to person when anyone needs to know where the Seven Sisters are or what they're up to, since she keeps tabs on all of their movements and whereabouts. As an area guardian, she's got access to some pretty impressive abilities, including an unknown portal system that lets her teleport or redirect intruders into whatever isolation area she chooses, essentially giving her complete control over who goes where within her domain. Her gate ability is considered to be the absolute highest tier of teleportation magic available, which really emphasizes just how powerful and skilled she is with spatial manipulation. When Ainz made the switch from the 6 stars to the 7 Sisters system for the Pleiades, she naturally became their leader, and she usually stays on top of what all the 7 Sisters are doing at any given time. She's not working alone in the Cherry Blossom Sanctuary either, since she has servants like Uka no Mitamas and Utoshis under her command who help her maintain control over her territory. According to Yuri Alpha, these servants have been given the sacred duty of defending the Cherry Blossom Sanctuary on the 8th floor of Nazarick, making them an integral part of the area's defense system. Just like Pandora's Actor, she reached the maximum level of 100, making her one of the most powerful area guardians in all of Nazarick. Her specialty lies in commander-type classes, which means she's built to lead and support others rather than just dish out damage on her own. As a commander, she can issue orders that prove significant buffs to her allies, like when she enhanced Doppel-CZ's Delta to the point to where Doppelganger could successfully interrupt Ainz's spellcasting twice, despite being way below his level. Ainz has noted that if you were able to categorize party roles like physical attacker, magical attacker, healer, and so on, she'd basically be a wild card since she functions as an all-arounder who can adapt to whatever the situation requires. When Ainz sends out his Death Knight to interview each of the floor guardians, she immediately noticed its presence the moment it used the gates, showing just how aware she is of everything that moves through her teleportation network. After determining that the undead wasn't an enemy, she allowed it to pass through without any interference, demonstrating her ability to make quick tactical decisions. During Infria, Enri and Nemu's visit to Nazarick when they were teleported to the 9th floor, Enri managed to catch a brief glimpse of her during the transition, giving us one of the few instances where someone from outside Nazarick actually saw her in action. When Yuri Alpha contacted her to find out where Shizu Delta was hanging out on the 6th floor at Nazarick, she offered to let Yuri borrow some of her servants, specifically the Uka no Mitamas, to help track down Shizu, though Yuri ended up turning down the offer. She told Yuri to contact her again if neither Aura nor Mari knew where Shizu had wandered off to, showing her willingness to help coordinate between different areas of Nazarick. With Ainz's permission, she informed Yuri that she was allowed to take 2 of her own servants outside the Cherry Blossom Sanctuary at any one time, which shows that even though her servant deployment requires careful coordination with the higher-ups. Although Yuri expressed some concern about whether it was really okay to send her servants outside the 8th floor, she reassured her sister that it wouldn't be a problem since she had other defenders beside the Uka no Mitamas keeping the sanctuary secure. When Albedo ordered her to support the summoned Evil Lord Wrath and Erich String Orchestra in their upcoming battle with Ainz, she was tasked with buffing the 5 greater doppelgangers who had taken on the forms of all her Pleiades sisters except Narberyl Gamma beforehand. Ainz initially didn't expect her to play a major role in this particular battle, but he quickly realized something was up when he noticed that the Doppel Pleiades were performing way stronger than they should normally be capable of doing. He figured out that she had to be involved in the match somehow, since she was obviously the one responsible for enhancing their group's strength and abilities to such an impressive degree. Nigredo. Nigredo is an NPC of the Great Tomb of Nazarick and holds the distinction of being the older sister of both Albedo and Rubedo, making her part of one of the most important family units in the tomb. She was imprisoned in the frozen prison on the 5th floor of Nazarick, where she acted as area guardian, specifically controlling the above-ground portion of this chilling facility. Her appearance shares some similarities with Albedo in terms of hair, but that's where any resemblance ends because her face is completely lacking skin, revealing nothing but exposed muscle tissue underneath. She possesses beautiful eyes and perfectly pearly white teeth, but there are no lips covering those teeth and no eyelids protecting those bright shining eyes, creating such a grotesque appearance that every single member of Ainz's own Gon immediately attacked her simultaneously the first time they saw her. As a magic caster, she specializes in information gathering and ranks among the few NPCs in Nazarick whose power approaches the highest level, putting her well over level 90. Her abilities focus on highly efficient surveillance, anti-surveillance, intelligence gathering, and scrying magic, which she demonstrated when she easily located Shoutir after her brainwashing incident and managed to cast surveillance magic over all of Nazarick's forces during Operation Gehenna, while simultaneously protecting the royal capital's safe houses with anti-surveillance spells. Ainz has confirmed that she was created specifically for these exclusive intelligence purposes, making her a specialized tool in Nazarik's arsenal. For combat, she wields scissors as her primary weapon, which appear as large sword-sized blades in the anime but regular-sized one used like daggers in the light novel. Her active abilities include remote jamming, which deal magic damage while lowering enemy stats and potentially inflicting curse states, fictional projection that manipulate hit and evasion rates for enemies and allies, and Abyss of Madness, which delivers darkness elemental magic damage to all enemies while reducing their stats and accuracy. Her passive abilities consist of Chop that deal darkness elemental damage while canceling enemy buffs, Clairvoyance for improved hit rates, and detection measures that boost evasion and charge her arts gauge at battle start. She didn't appear until Season 4 Episode 9 of the anime due to the adaptation skipping the Bloody Valkyrie arc, but when Ainz and Albedo visited her to request surveillance assistance in locating Shalltear, she had a bonding moment with her sister where she warned Albedo about their dangerous younger sister, Rubedo. She later provided magical protection for the alley where the Pleiades held their secret meeting, with Lupus Regina Beta confirming that the area had been warded against spying through her abilities. When Ainz decided to reward his minions and Solution requested humans, he remembered the captive Eight Fingers members and the humans that she and Pestonya had risked punishment to protect, ultimately deciding to spare those humans because of their compassionate actions. This act of defiance led to her confinement in the frozen prison alongside Pestonya as her cellmate, but Yuri Alpha later secured their release with Ainz's permission so they could help establish a Sorcerer Kingdom-sponsored orphanage. Both she and Pestonya were put in charge of managing the New War Orphanage in Irantel to help integrate future generations and ensure their loyalty to Nazarik. When Ainz clarified to the undead Captain Grelune that not all undead belonged to him, he specifically mentioned her along with Shalltear and Yuri as exceptions to this rule. During Boozer's plea for mercy, Ainz refused because he knew that both she and Pestonya would be disgusted by Boozer's habit of killing children and wearing their skulls as trophies. Albedo considered her older sister as a potential candidate to run Demiurge's new intelligence agency, but ultimately decided against it because she couldn't trust her unconditionally and feared they might become enemies if she discovered Albedo's true intentions. At some point, she requested Sebas to speak with Ainz on her behalf since she didn't have permission to leave her area, asking for a private meeting in the Frost Prison, which Ainz agreed to after discussing it with the butler. During the meeting, she suggested that Ainz should rent out more of his undead minions for agricultural purposes, reasoning that this would lead to improvements in food production and eventually create cuisine that could rival what Nazarik itself offered, which Ainz approved. When the conversation turned to the main topic, she became the first to argue alongside Pestonya against the large-scale massacre of the Riastai's kingdom, though Ainz remained adamant that the culling was necessary to strengthen the Sorcerer Kingdom and prevent human civilization from growing too powerful. Ainz questioned why she hadn't contacted the Floor Guardians instead of him directly, viewing her actions as potentially undermining Cocytus' authority since she technically fell under his jurisdiction as a 5th floor area guardian. Despite her various suggestions and arguments, none were convincing enough to change Ainz's minds about the massacre until Pestonya proposed letting some humans escape as fearmongers to spread the word about the futility of opposing the Sorcerer Kingdom. This idea finally got Ainz's attention, and after careful consideration, he decided to allow 10% of the Riastai's kingdom's population to survive, while the other 90% would be eliminated. Both she and Pestonya expressed their eternal gratitude to their master for listening to their concerns and taking their suggestions into consideration, even if the final outcome still involved massive loss of life. Pestonya. Pestonya Shortcake Wanko serves as both an area guardian and the head maid of Nazarik, making her one of the few NPCs in the tomb who actually shows genuine sympathy towards humans. She presents a striking appearance with her body of a beautiful lady, but the head of a Shetland sheepdog instead of a human head, complete with a vertical scar running down the center of her face that shows signs of stitching. Her creator was someone who had a habit of naming things based on food and originally tried to call her Pescatore, and it turns out she was created by the same person who made Eclair, specifically Enkoro Mochi Mochi. As a high priest with access to powerful healing magic, she ranks as a high-level cleric whose maid outfits function as a high-class item that provides defensive stats, while her fur gives her natural cold resistance. When she uses resurrection spells, she requires payment in the form of gold coins, jewels, or other valuable goods of equivalent worth. and she has access to the highest ranking holy magic available. Ainz considers her the best healer that they have in the entire Great Tomb in Nazarick, and she can transfer her mana reserves to other NPCs like Shihoutu to help prolong their magical abilities. She's one of only 2 people in Nazarick who can completely heal Sararina Veyron's mental damage, with Ainz being the other. Her High Priest abilities also allow her to use summoning magic to call forth angels like the Archangel's Flame, and according to Eclair, she was managing the 9th floor of Nazarick while Sebas was away on his mission in Riastais. During the Lizardmen War, she assisted Shihoutu by supplementing her magic to open a gate to the wetlands when Shihoutu claimed she couldn't do it alone. When Solution suggested getting her help to heal Tare's wounds instead of using scrolls created by the Supreme Beings, she successfully treated the human girl and later greeted her when Tare was officially accepted into Nazarick. After Tare left, she made a playful comment to Sebas about how the human had fallen for him, which had caused the butler to blush. When Ainz decided to reward his minions and Solution asked for humans, he remembered that she and Negretto had risked going against his orders to protect some of the Eight Fingers captives, so he decided to give Solution different humans instead of the ones that they had saved. This act of defiance led to Albedo's outrage, and while Ainz forgave them, both she and Negretto were sentenced to house arrest in the frozen prison until Albedo calmed down. Her confinement meant that she couldn't complete Tare's maid training, a responsibility that was then passed to Yuri Alpha. She and Negretto were eventually freed at Yuri's request so they can help run a Sorcerer Kingdom-sponsored orphanage, and both were put in charge of managing a new war orphanage in Irantel to help integrate future generations and ensure their loyalty to Nazarick. A month after the Sorcerer Kingdom declared war on the Riastais Kingdom, she was present in Ainz's study with other maids and floor guardians, listening to Cocytus' report about destroying a kingdom city. Before Ainz returned to Nazarick, she requested through Sebas that their master visit her and Negretto in the frozen prison for a private meeting, which he agreed to do. She was scheduled to arrive at the prison an hour after Ainz finished his war meeting with the floor guardians, and Sebas mentioned that he would give her orders about taking care of some dull matter Ainz had discussed. When the private meeting finally took place with Ainz and Sebas present, both she and Negretto argued against the planned massacre of the Riastais Kingdom. In the end, Ainz considered her suggestion carefully and ultimately decided to allow 10% of the Riastais Kingdom's population to survive while eliminating the other 90%. Later, she played a crucial role in helping Renner resurrect Climb back to life using her healing magic, and after successfully reviving him, she immediately left the room to give Renner privacy with the newly resurrected Climb. Neuronist Painkill. Neuronist Painkill is the area guardian of the underground section of the frozen prison on Nazarick's 5th floor, and she's basically the tomb's go-to specialist for making people talk, through extremely unpleasant methods. Picture a massive bloated gray corpse covered in tentacles, sporting heavy makeup and ridiculously long fingers tipped with sharp inch-long nails painted with nail polish. That's Neuronist in all her grotesque glory. Despite being technically androgynous by race, she declared herself a big sister and absolutely loves her job of torturing prisoners and extracting information from them. She gets genuine pleasure from inflicting pain on others, which makes sense considering her favorite snack is brains. The woman never shuts up either. She'll casually chat with her victims while preparing her torture instruments, like she's discussing the weather. Her vanity runs so deep that she genuinely believes she's more attractive than both Shihoutu and Albedo, which is quite the claim coming from a walking corpse. She works alongside a group called the Torturers in her designated area and has this particularly nasty little torture device, a thin rod with 5mm spikes at the end that she claims honors her creator who suffered from kidney stones, and according to her twisted logic, the tool needs to be inserted into a male victim's urethra to cause maximum pain. Combat-wise, Neuronis is pretty weak by Nazarick standards, so much so that she needed Aura's assistance when interrogating the stronger Antoline Haran Fouché. Her character build focuses entirely on torture, interrogation, and information extraction rather than fighting prowess. The surviving members of the Sunlight Scripture, including their captain Nguyen Grid Luen, got shipped straight to her tender care after their disastrous encounter with Ainz. Albedo kept Ainz updated on how Neuronis was monitoring these captured Scripture members, and when the Overseer suggested summoning Neuronis for guidance about the frozen prison, Ainz flat out refused because he found her constant chatter annoying. Albedo initially planned to lecture Neuronis about her excessive talking until Ainz told her to drop it. Working with Demiurge's master plan, Neuronis successfully helped reduce the authority of the Eight Fingers leadership alongside Mari and Kyuko, allowing them to slowly infiltrate the criminal organization's ranks as part of their long-term strategy to control the Reistais kingdom. She also pitched in to help Intoma Vasilisa Zeta recover from her brutal fight with Evil Eye. When worker groups invaded Nazarick to test the tomb's defenses, Heavy Masher's group triggered a trap, and at least one member ended up in Neuronis' torture chamber where she repeatedly worked him over. During the fall of the Reistais kingdom, after traitorous nobles brought King Xenix's head to Ainz as a supposed peace offering, the Supreme Being's silent fury led him to order those nobles and soldiers, along with their entire families, to be handed over to Neuronis for torture, ensuring they would live in perpetual agony without any hope of mercy. When Ainz returned from his trip from the Elf country with a prisoner that Mari had captured, he brought her straight to the frozen prison for Neuronis to interrogate, specifically wanting to understand how this prisoner had managed to use this signature spell, the goal of all life is death, and Shalltear's Inheriar ability. Since they suspected this prisoner might be connected to whoever had mind-controlled Shalltear previously, her interrogation became top priority. Given that Mare had reported this prisoner as extremely powerful, Ainz stationed the Dark Elf as a guard to protect Neuronis during the interrogation process. After stripping the prisoner of all her equipment and conducting her interrogation, Neuronis successfully extracted the crucial information that the slain theocracy was indeed responsible for brainwashing Shalltear. When this intelligence reached Ainz, his rage was so intense that he immediately declared war on the theocracy in retaliation for their actions against his precious floor guardian. Shihoutu Tokitu. Shihoutu Tokitu, better known as Head Chef, runs the culinary operations as an area guardian of the Great Tomb of Nazarick, spending most of his time working in the canteen where he whips up meals for the entire underground fortress. He's a wild orc variant, which basically means he's a beefed up version of your typical orc, and he looks the part with a massive butcher knife hanging from his waist and an enormous wok chained to his back, like some kind of culinary warrior. The web novel confirms he was crafted by the Supreme Beings themselves, making him one of their custom creations rather than a natural spawn. His main gig involves preparing all the meals and elaborate feasts throughout Nazarick, and he's got some pretty nifty abilities that go way beyond just knowing how to chop vegetables. The guy can actually detect if food items are poisonous just by examining them, plus he can appraise ingredients to figure out their culinary potential, and whether they can provide magical buffs when prepared correctly. He's apparently one of only 3 people in the entire tomb who actually know how to cook properly, though there are hints that he's got a cooking staff working under him in the kitchen. When Sebas was arguing about letting Tari join Nazarick, he brought up the fact that they were seriously short-handed when it came to people who could actually prepare decent food. Ainz thought this was a solid point, but Demiurge wasn't convinced her cooking skills would meet Nazarick's standards, so they suggested having the head chef train her up to their level if she got accepted. During the half-elf Godkin arc, he was busy in the canteen kitchen during the General Maid's lunch period when Ainz showed up with his entourage for what should have been a casual meal. The orc immediately dropped everything to personally greet his supreme leader, going full prostrate on the floor before getting back up to fuss over preparing something special for the Overlord. Even though Ainz specifically asked not to get any preferential treatment since there were other people eating in the canteen, the head chef got so insistent about making something extra special that Ainz actually had to question whether he was being too focused on impressing him instead of just doing his normal job. This thought of potentially displeasing his master immediately shut down the orc's proud boasting, but Ainz quickly apologized for the thoughtless comment and asked again to just be treated like any irregular guest. The cook finally accepted this request and went off to prepare the standard meal orders for Ainz's party, without any special fuss. Later, when Ainz was taking his vacation in the Great Forest of Evesha, he briefly reported back to Nazarick specifically to ask the head chef to prepare a meal that wouldn't have a strong smell, since he needed to avoid being detected by the forest creatures through scent. The head chef also hosted an elaborate feast for Clavu, Eclair, Negretto, and Pestonya, and after Eclair made a toast to himself during the meal, the orc got inspired with a completely new cooking idea involving penguins. Having never attempted to cook penguin before, he started thinking about using albino penguins that live on Nazarick's 5th floor as potential ingredients for future dishes, showing how he's always looking for new culinary challenges and ingredients to experiment with in his kitchen.